Hi everybody, it's Bright here, and thank you for coming back for part 3. Once again, sorry about the delay. This didn't happen as quickly as I wanted. I've had some good days and bad days. Just haven't really had a lot of energy for doing this kind of thing. It takes a lot out of me to come back and do it. What I thought I would do this time is something different to last time. I listened to the last recording and I wasn't happy with trying to read what I'd written from the sessions and remember. It just seemed too confusing. So what I'm going to try and do is I have gone through the session and taken some notes, but just to refresh myself, because there's a lot that happened, but I'm just going to try and remember what happened, and hopefully you'll get a clear sense of the picture. As I said last time, there was a lot that took place when I was on the craft, and I'm not sure if I can really convey it, so I'll try and convey as much detail as I can, but I won't be talking verbatim in terms of what they said. Just try and pass on what I can. So you'll remember I was in the room with the three entities, the two males and a female. I assume it's the same male that went ahead, the third one, who was sitting at the console, kind of off to one side, sort of at the back a bit. And female was on my left and the male on my right. They were about to take me through the examination, and the reason that they had explained that I was going to have the examination was because they knew I was concerned about the cancer, and they wanted to show me what was happening inside my body. So you remember the table, which was kind of able to morph into different shapes. The table was in a 90-degree position, and I was asked to stand in the bottom of the table, my feet up underneath these little holders, if you like. And they said various things, and then they asked me to brace myself. And the table, what it did is it didn't, I don't think it moved on my feet, but it basically wrapped the sides around, partly around my body, nice and tight. And they asked me if it wasn't too tight. I said, no, you can make it tighter. They were happy with that. But they asked me to brace myself because there would be a sudden movement. So quite suddenly, but very smoothly, the table went from being like that to the horizontal position, and I found myself lying on my back. And they explained to me that it wouldn't take long to do this part of the examination, and then afterwards they would take me and show me what was happening. What they explained to me was sometimes when you're with them, they use language that for the benefit of you so that you understand, but it's not necessarily language that conveys what something is. So sometimes when they talk about the craft or the ship or vessel, they talk about different parts as a machine because they know that I will understand what that means. What's difficult to get your head around is that this is a sentient craft, a living entity. So the language they use is to simplify my understanding, so it's easier for me to comprehend. So they explained that they would do the examination with their hands and using the table, the machine. And the table would perceive information that they were not able to perceive with their bodies, but that it would pool information that it had gathered with the information that they had gathered, and then the ship would be able to show me what was taking place inside of my body. Now, I'm not sure whether they're able to actually create a projection themselves without a craft. I have a sense that when they do that away from the craft, it's still somehow using a technology. So they were going to take me afterwards and show me. I had an idea then that it was some kind of projection the craft was going to make. So I was to lie on the machine and it would do its work and they would do their work. And what they explained was that the machine was also sensitive to specific energy signatures of the body and the body systems. So first of all, the male began moving his hands down the right hand side of my body, and the female placed her hand on my heart, one of her hands on my heart, and then she put it over my head like this. And he slowly moved around my body with both of his hands, just lightly touching. Sometimes lifting above and sometimes touching, but never firmly and never, at a distance. And he moved his hands slowly around my body and around my feet. Other times when I've had encounters, they've spent a long time on the feet, actually with their hands against the feet. I even did that with my son, which is kind of strange, but I'm assuming they're picking up on an energetic field in that part of the body. So he then slowly moved around and came up to here. You might be able to see it. This is where I had my kidney out here. So he... it's cold. I shouldn't have done that. It's freezing today. He had his hands over this area of my body where I'd had surgery, and it's in this same area that I also have the largest tumour in my body. So he had his hands there for quite some time, and then he came back around, and during this whole experience I felt a number of things. When I lay down on the machine, I felt this very strange kind of warming energy. It was subtle, but it was noticeable. It was like there was some kind of vibration entering me. And then when they placed their hands on me, there was a different kind of warmth coming. I could feel the energetic differences. And then after a while, my whole body felt quite different between the two energies of the machine and their hands. And I didn't feel any pain, any discomfort. It was just a strange sensation. I'd never felt that before. Not in that context, with that kind of examination. So then they come back and they're on either side of me, and they surprise me. They tell me that we're about to go and have a look. And I'm not sure if the third entity, as I said, I know these two. One of them is the one that I think of as a companion, who comes every couple of months, and the male I also recognise. The other one, I'm not sure if I've seen that one before. And I don't know if that one is controlling the machine or collating information. I don't know, but there's nothing to see except that he has his hands interfaced with the panel. Doesn't seem to be doing anything, moving hands slightly, very focused, and there's no lights, nothing like that. What I would say, which I see throughout the craft at different times, is there's kind of like a sort of effervescent glow, if you like, sort of purpley, bluey, silver glow. I guess you could call it light, but it's not light. It's kind of like the residual kind of, like a residual kind of plasma look to it. It's very hard to describe. And I'll talk about the interfacing later on, because I had a chance to do that myself. So they are on either side of me, and I'm quite sure actually that the craft is doing this under their guidance. Not necessarily the third one who's over there, but their feet are grounded on the craft, and they have this very personal relationship with the craft. As I've said before, the craft knows everything, every possible aspect of every being on board that craft, everything that a foreigner brings on board in terms of their body, in terms of if they've had an examination, in terms of their mind, if they've interfaced with that craft at all, walked on the craft knows everything. In terms of the beings who are part of the craft, who travel with the craft, it knows everything. So all information that they have, it knows. So they're on either side, and they were about to go and see what they found out, and then they surprised me. They take something out, I didn't see where it came from, and they show me this small crystal. And well, I think it's a crystal, but I'm not sure. I've seen when I've been with my ET friends, I have conscious recollections of 2 previous incidents with rocks. One was with the Teal'hia, this black kind of disc-shaped, very smooth rock that was given to me, that was that I was asked to hold in different parts of my body to supposedly help with my pain and suffering, and I never fully understood what that meant, whether it was just at the time having the samples taken or later on. And also when I was a child, I met a young woman, an old woman, she was in her 80s at the time, who I later discovered was a humanoid, very much human-looking ET, and she showed me this small ovoid black stone that fitted perfectly into the gap here in her throat, and she explained that it came from space, and she had a very unusual story, but that's a whole other video to explain her. So I was familiar with using these before, and I have seen them use different stones before, what I take to be stones or crystals. Maybe they're artificial objects. So I wasn't surprised. So they pulled out this small, I'd say quartz-like object, probably about bean size, and quite symmetrical. And they gave it to me. They asked me to hold it, and I held it, and I picked it up in my fingers, and inside it was like it had a living pulse inside of it. It had these striations of light coming out of the center, and it wasn't regular, it was irregular, and it seemed to respond to not so much touch as in feeling or thought. And they said to me that this was capable of storing memories and all that was within my mind, both conscious and unconscious, what I was aware of and what I wasn't. And I asked them, what is this? And they said, this is a gift for you. And I asked why, and they were just happy to give me a gift. They knew that I had it in my mind quite a long time ago that it would be nice to have something from them, because often you visit them and they live in a very sparse environment, and they don't need material things, and you come back with no evidence except what's on your body and in your mind of what's happened. And I don't care about evidence for other people. I care about it for myself sometimes, because there are times when you think you're going crazy, and it would be nice to have something tangible to help you see that you're not going crazy, that you can revisit time and time again. So they said to me that they would give me this gift after I had healed and after the great turbulence had passed. So I'm not going to say anything about what that means, except to say that I was really in a state of shock. More a state of shock that they were going to give me this gift. Now, they explained to me that this gift would help me to remember everything and to find what I seek. I don't really think that I'm a seeker. I'm past that now. I'm very content for the most part with what is, but maybe there are some deeper things that I seek, and they understand that probably better than I understand myself. And so that's what they said to me. I also asked, how will I know how to use it? And they said, when they give it to me, when they come back and give it to me, and they explained that they would specifically come back for that reason, that they would explain how to use it and how to look after it. I had a sense that this is an object that others would want, and they explain or would want to see or would want to steal from me. They explained that there would be simple things that I could do to conceal the object so it could never be found. It would be rendered invisible. So I'm curious to see how that unfolds. I mean, to me, that is it's quite an unusual thing to be told, quite an unusual experience. And I sensed when I was holding this rock that it already knew a great deal about me. So that's what they said they would do. They said that they would give me that when I was healed, when I was ready, when the great turbulence had passed, and they would explain how to use it. So at that point then, I get off, and the same way I just step out, and then I'm taken out of that room, and they're guiding me. They ask me to follow. The female is holding my hand, and we go a fair way. I'm not really sure how far. It's not a huge distance, maybe 30 meters, something like that, 40 meters. And they're conscious that I'm thinking about the craft, and they say to me, do you know what kind of ship you're on? And I say, well, I know I'm with the Teal'hia, it's you guys, and this is a large craft. I sense that this is a large craft. And they say to me, this is what humans call a mothership, and there are 850 beings on board. They didn't explain whether they're all Teal'hia. Later I had a sense that there were others. I saw others. So I'm assuming that was the total number. And I was aware of at least 3 humans, including myself, on board. There may have been others on other levels. And I don't think, if you were to look for this craft, this took place in broad daylight, I don't think you would have seen it. It was either cloaked or it was up very high or out of the atmosphere. That's just my feeling. I don't know that for sure. And because I wasn't prepared for the event, I didn't get a chance to really look up and take that in. Even though I crashed and hit the ground, I don't recall seeing anything. So then I'm taken into another room on the left. Once again, the halls are very smooth, very curved. There's a gentle curve, and this room is darkened and quickly lights up, but it doesn't become as luminous as the other room. And on the right hand side there is this room is probably about the same size as the other one, and curved walls and gently curved. Actually the back is, you probably say the back where I'm looking doesn't even look like it's got a curve, but there's a subtle curve on the side where we go and sit down. And so on the right there is this C-shaped structure, like this, coming out of the wall, and there's kind of like, I suppose you'd call them armrests on either end. And it looks like it could fit, I don't know, 4 people, something like that, 5 people. And I guess it's the equivalent of a lounge. And I'm asked to sit down, and I sit down, and they take a seat on either side of me, and it's interesting. I see one of them, the female, put her hand on the armrest, and I'm thinking about the armrest, and then instantly this set of armrests just morphs up next to me, and I say something like, "You didn't have to do that. I was just looking. I didn't. You don't need to do that." And then it instantly goes back. And they explained to me that the ship will provide me with anything that I need. All I need to do is think it, and it will provide it for me. And they asked me if I would like to rest at this time, or if I'm happy to go ahead. And I say I'm happy to go ahead, or if I would like something to eat or need to go to the toilet. And I explained that I probably need to go to the toilet soon with the one kidney. I urinate fairly regularly. And so they explained, just whenever you're ready, tell us and we will take you to your room. So at this point, I sit back in this chair, which is kind of, it looks like it's some kind of alloy, but it doesn't feel like a hard metal. It actually feels very soft and comfortable, and it has a warmth, a natural kind of warmth to it. And my sense is that the ship sets everything up as required to meet your needs, individual needs. Now, I don't know what the needs of the Teal'hia are, but maybe they're more flexible, but certainly that room and that seat was quite comfortable for me. One thing I remember, actually, before I got into that room, I remember thinking about the rooms and that I couldn't see any rooms, and I just had this clear sense that there were space bubbles. And by that, I mean unallocated, undesignated, uncreated spaces throughout the craft that could just morph into whatever was desired or needed for that, for whatever purpose for that particular room. And this room that we entered had been created either just before we entered or sometime earlier. I'm not sure. There may be specific rooms that are always used for examination and showing, but I had a sense that the rooms are created as they're required. So at this point, the male gets up and the room starts to darken again, and a projection appears in front of us near the wall, but it's not on the wall, and it's the most realistic projection you can imagine. It's my body, it's me as I am now, and you can see me. I'm completely naked, and from the bottom of my ribs down, sort of really tight in that there, down to the bottom of my torso, you can see inside of me, and what they do is the projection slowly moves through the different layers until I can see the layer at which the tumours are. And so the male takes me through each of my tumours, the 3 main tumours that I had, and he shows me how big they are and the position and locality of various different things and what they're pushing up against. And I can see that the largest one was very close to my spine and was to the back of my surgical area. And I guess the whole thing about wanting to know for me was about whether things were getting worse or better, because I'd been through a turbulent time. And they explained to me that they gave me exact measurements, and they said that the tumours had all shrunk. They were all approximately half their size. And a couple of months later, when I had my scans, I had 8 tumours, and the scans then showed 3 tumours, and they were all smaller. So that correlated with what they were now telling me. That was validated down the track. essentially. And then they took me to they took me through individual tumours and parts of the body and showed me how they were impacting on me. And I was particularly concerned about one that's at the base of the head of my pancreas. That had been causing me a lot of pain, and I wasn't sure if it was bigger or had moved into my pancreas. Because once tumours get into your pancreas, it's pretty hard to recover. You know, pancreatic cancer, not that this is pancreatic cancer, but once it's in your pancreas, you're pretty fucked. And I wanted to know whether that was the case. I was having intense pain in the just under the ribs in this area. So they explained to me how the muscle systems work there and how the nerves interlace there, and the different nerves around that part of the body and those organs. And then I could see the position of that tumour and how the nerves were very close. And what they explained is that when I ate too much or had gas, the tumour was being pushed up and outwards and pushing against the nerves, and the muscles were being tightened, and that was also pushing down on the nerves, and that was creating a lot of the pain. So they gave me some very clear advice about that. They told me to eat much smaller meals more frequently, and just to be mindful that I didn't overeat. I mean, I'm a skinny guy, but I like to eat well. They also said something interesting. They explained the flow of energy through the body. They showed me how the body's natural energy systems work, and they explained that there were certain things that I was doing that were interrupting those energy systems, and in particular in relation to the tumours. So they showed me where the energy pattern was disrupted and how it was disrupted. And they gave me a very clear warning. They said that I needed to do what Karnatek, who you will recall is a Chinese man, a guide who has given me a great deal of help with this cancer, and he was somebody that they asked to be part of my life. They told me that I needed to do what he told me, and that I needed to heed all of his advice and to be diligent about that, otherwise I would pay a great price and my illness would deteriorate. So instead of getting better, I would get much, much worse, and it would kill me. They were very adamant about that I needed to do what he had told me to do. And as I've said before, this cancer has a purpose in my life, and I haven't asked them to take it away because I know, and they know, that it will be taking away the greatest shortcut I have to growing as a human being and growing spiritually. And this cancer has been a teacher and a gift and taught me a great deal. Having said that, I'd rather not have it, but the journey that I'm on, it has given me a great deal. And I think that they just don't want to see me screw up. I mean, yeah, sure, they could take it away, but it would probably come back again because of the same patterns and the same inability to honour the soul. So rather than do that, they have given me a teacher to help me in my life, not just with cancer, but all kinds of things. And I've learned a great deal out of that relationship. It has changed the way that I perceive reality. And of course, they can't be here all the time, but he can be there more often. And so, if you like, he's kind of an intermediary between myself and them, and I'm really appreciative. So when they give me a warning, do what he tells you, I take heed of that. Now, it's interesting that when I had my 2013 scans, I think in January, that was when I discovered that the tumours have come back more aggressively. The 3 that I've got, in particular the largest one, is now pushing on my spine and pushing against my descending aorta, which it had been doing before, but not as badly. And the risk is that it will kill me. If it grows half a centimetre into my descending aorta, it will kill me. It will shut down one of my organs. And so they were serious about that. So my focus in the last 4 months has really been on following what I was told and being careful. They emphasised a couple of things in particular: that I needed to spend far less time on the computer. I needed to be off computer by 2 p.m, have no more than 3 hours a day, and be in bed by 9 p.m, finish reading by 9:30, and sleep by 10 o'clock. I need at least 8 to 9 hours sleep. Now that may fly in the face of lots of spiritual masters, but I go with what they told me. So these are the same things that Garlick has told me. So they reinforced what he's been teaching me. And they warn me, be careful, or it will come back. So that has since come to fruition, and I think largely that's because I spent the 6 months between this encounter and the end of the year engaged in some things that caused a great deal of turbulence to me, and really made my life very uncomfortable. And one particular person, and they know who they are, certainly added to that. So I've made an effort to distance myself from those kinds of things and to do those things that are good for me. So they show me all about the tumours, and at different times they ask me if I understand what they mean about how the body's energy system works. And they're explaining, as they're talking about the tumours, how different activities interrupt the blood flow to specific parts of the body and the energy flow, and how those two, energy and blood, are linked. And this discussion comes up about human understanding of energy systems, and they ask me if I'm familiar with the Chinese system and with the Indian system. I say yes. And they explain to me that both have elements of the truth, but they're not the complete truth. And afterwards they ask me if I want to see how energy really works in the body, how the body's energy system really functions. And I'm keen to see that. I'm not an expert. I do practice Qigong, and I do work with energy using the Chinese system, very occasionally the Indian system. But I understand we're connected to an energetic universe, and we're part of this. So I am keen to see that. I'll just try and explain some of what they said to me, and I'm just going to read from my notes, just because I'm a bit tired and it's a bit hard to remember everything. They tried to explain to me how the body's connected to the inner and the outer world. The outer world receives energy through many different systems. Energy from the place you reside, the objects you interact with, the foods and fluids that you consume, the air that you breathe, the activities that you engage in. And the body receives energy through the skin, the air you breathe, the food, through the blood and the nerves, the immune system and the lymphatic system. And most human beings only look at one system. They either look at the outer world or the inner world. And what they tried to emphasize is that you need to look at the harmonic interaction, rather than balance, the harmony between the inner and outer world, the mind and the body. And they explained that energy is also created through the mind and the heart, and these systems work together and influence one another. They went into a very long discussion about that, asked me if I understood what they were saying. And I guess what they said to me is that if you move through life from a point of view of engaging constantly with the mind, you don't engage with life from a place of feeling. And when you don't engage through a place of feeling, the body is constantly chasing the activities of the mind, and so it's continually depleted of energy, and that's how you get sick. So they were explaining to me how it's important to have that harmony between the systems, but to always engage with the heart, to follow from feeling, and that way you'll follow things that create and rejuvenate energy rather than constantly depleting it, and that helps you to get well and heal rather than to get sick. Now, I know that sounds pretty simple, and I guess it was much more detailed what they explained to me, and it makes sense too. Hopefully what I just said made sense to you. And I guess for me, I'm a very analytical person, but I have also, certainly in the last decade, tried to be a much more, heartful kind of person. And what I realised is many of the things that I did wrong in my life, I did because I chased the activities of the mind. My mind was always the thing that led me to a place of greater suffering. And what they keep trying to emphasize every time I meet them is to follow the heart, always check with the heart. Now, that's not to say that you do something with reckless passion and reckless stupidity. You check with the heart, check in with the heart. So this was a really important discussion that we had on board the craft. And to be able to see that in terms of energy and the energetic disruption I had in my body was really quite profound. It really did change the way that I looked at things, and it reinforced a lot of what Karnateka is trying to teach me. So I guess what they try to emphasize is that I need to choose things that are conducive to the well-being of my body and my heart, and they will look after one another. If I just choose things that are conducive to the well-being or functioning of my mind, I wouldn't say well-being, but certainly the functioning, then the other two are going to suffer. So that was that discussion. And then they asked me something unusual. They said, is there anything else that you would like to see in your body? And I was a bit kind of stunned by that. So I said, I thought for a moment, and I've always wanted to see my heart and my brain. So those other parts of the body closed up, and then the chest cavity opened up, and they showed me in my heart. They took me to the outside and showed me the inside, and it was able to give me like a translucent kind of view so I could see both. And then they did the same with my brain, and I asked a number of questions about different parts of the brain, things like the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and how the hemispheres work, because I don't believe in the idea of hemispherity. I think the brain works much more globally, which is why you can do things like cognitive remapping, cortical remapping. So that took me in a direction I hadn't expected, and then I said, or I had actually said, I'd like to see my own DNA. At that point, a strange thing happened. The part where it had produced an armrest before produced this similar shaped object, but probably narrower, and it had like a little cup that could fit the end of my finger in, and they asked me to just put my finger in, and it only took, 2 seconds. Just put it in, it took it out, and it disappeared. And so it then zoomed in my finger. Now I'm not sure why it wouldn't have done this before. I think they were trying to give me a sense of seeing the machine in action, seeing the craft in action, how it could interface with me directly, straight away. And then it zoomed in on a specific part of my finger and took me into a finger cell. I'm assuming that it was an epithelial cell or something like that. I don't remember being told exactly where inside the finger it was. I remember seeing it move very quickly, and then we were at the entrance to a cell. I've just realised that I'm just about out of recording space. My tumour's hurting a bit as well. So I might leave it there and continue next video with I won't go into the details of what happened in terms of looking inside the cell, just a few core things. There's a couple of interesting points they made about discoveries that our scientists will make down the track. And then I might tell you about the tour. They then took me after this to meet the crew. Well, crew in one area. They were obviously, it seems that the craft is flown and directed and lots of activities take place in different parts of the craft. So I'll tell you about the crew that I met, and then in the video after that I'll tell you about the Brazilian boy who was unconscious, who I met on board, and what I was asked to say to him and how to interact. And then the video after that, how I was taken into the rest area, think of it as a hotel room, given a bed, bathroom, access to the craft's interface so that I could have food and water and use the toilet as I wish and create the toilets. And then after that, how I met an Australian lady who was conscious, a lady from central New South Wales, and then her interaction with the Brazilian boy. And then after that, the following video, how I was told all about how the craft, the ship, can create spaces. We're talking spaces outside, inside. Yeah, that's a whole other completely long thing if I went into it, but I'll give you a video on that. And then I'll talk about meeting another, going to another room, I assume upstairs, and meeting other crew. And then if this time and I've still got energy, I'll tell you about the rest of the time. As I said, I think it was about 12 hours on board, maybe longer, 12 hours that I know of. So that's the nuts and bolts of the examination. Thank you for getting this far, and take care. And I'm not making any promises as to when I'll get back to do the next video. No promises this time, but it will happen. Take care. Cowabunga. Be happy. Be well.